Wow, we've got so many models, haven't we, of the Redmi Note and the other Xiaomi phones. Well, this is the Note 10s and the Note 5G. So obviously, one of them has 5G. But this is powered by the Dimensity 700. This is powered here by the Helio G95. So very different chipsets. Both of them have the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery capacities, but different charge rates. 18 watts versus 33 watts. Different cameras as well. So 64 megapixel main camera versus a 48 megapixel main camera. The front-facing cameras, 8 and 13. So Note 10s and the 10 5G here. I'll take a look at the Note 10 5G first. Unbox that one. And we've got a case right here, so that's good. They're including still the TPU cases. It'll be one of those clear ones. And there's a instruction manual there, which is a quick start guide. Okay, we've got a SIM tool, which is on the back of that as well. And safety information, warranty card, whatnot. And the normal typical cases we get from them. So the phone, this one here has the MediaTek Dimensity 700, the 90 Hz 6.5-inch screen with the front-facing cutout little dot camera there, 48 megapixel camera, and the 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 18 watt fast charging. That one, and let's take a look here at the Note 10s. So the Note 10s, this one has the AMOLED screen, okay, but it's 60 Hz. So if you wanted the better refresh rate, then you would get the other one there. Also powered by MediaTek, it's the Helio G95, has the 33 watt fast charging, same capacity, the 5,000 milliamp hours, and a 64 megapixel camera with this one. In this compartment here of the 10s, we have another TPU case, that's a bit of paperwork there and everything, the warranty, user quick start guide, so I won't show you that again. And this is the size of the charger. So it doesn't look too bad there. Type A USB charging, of course, and the Euro plug. And then the standard typical USB cable that we get from Xiaomi of a reasonably good length. It's quite a long one, and normally the quality of their cables is decent. Then the charger of the Note 10 5G, which is a little bit smaller, and this one is 18 watts. Note 10 5G, take a look at the build of this one first. So we have a plastic back on it, and you can see they're going with this two-tone style. So it's darker down here at the bottom and slightly lighter at the top, and it doesn't actually feel too bad. So the camera does protrude a little here, and we do have a plastic frame. I can see clearly all around the outside, so plastic frame with these, and that's to be expected, the price point. Side fingerprint reader, now I do find these capacitive always on ones do work quite well. Plastic volume up and down buttons. Right up here at the top, you can see we've got loudspeaker, IR transmitter, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And down the bottom, Type-C, loudspeaker, and the mic there. You can actually see one antenna line there just a little bit. But overall, that doesn't actually feel too bad. So that, I will power that on shortly. But have a look here at now the Note 10s, which is a slightly more expensive model, has the AMOLED and the 64 megapixel main camera. So both of these phones have the 2 megapixel, by the way, which I kind of call, well, sticker cameras. A lot of us call them that because they don't really do too much. So one for depth, and there will be another one there used for macros, and that's the main camera right there. This one has the ultra-wide. We don't get an ultra-wide with the Note 10 5G, dual-tone LED flash. So this has, again, I believe that's plastic. Well, it always feels like a glass, but no, that's a plastic finish to the rear of it. Around the side, same side fingerprint reader, although it looks a little bit different. Volume up and down there. Right down the bottom, Type-C port, loudspeaker, microphone, and the 3.5 is on the bottom of this particular model right here. Some tray tools on both of them. They are on the upper left, as you can see. And I'll probably take a quick peek at that to see what they actually do support. So loudspeaker port, IR transmitter, and a microphone there too with this one. So feels okay. And I definitely think that that is plastic too on the back. So both of the front screens on these, they are using Gorilla Glass 3. And just take a look at the difference in our weight now. So this is the Note 10 5G, and that is 192 grams. According to my scales, of course. Official specs will probably be a little less. And 181 on the Note 10s. And looking at the thickness of them, so the Note 10 5G is a little thicker. It is about 9mm that I'm measuring versus 8.5mm of the 10S. So the 10S looks a little slimmer here because of the glossy finish to it, but as I flip it around and we have a look at the rear of them, you can see that the matte finish of the 5G model does tend to pick up a few more fingerprints and smudges. But for the price that these phones sell for, both of them do have a very solid and a good feeling build quality. But yes, they are all plastic, the frames around them, and they do have that Gorilla Glass 3 as mentioned. Obviously, with the Note 10 5G, it has, of course, the 5G support, and will take two SIMs, as you can see, two nano SIMs, and a micro SD card. Metal reinforcing, there's a rubber gasket around this to keep out dust and a little bit of splash resistance there. So it can run both of those 5G SIMs at the same time. So it's a proper 5G dual. And here we have with the 10S, different setup. So you can run the two SIMs and a micro SD card, which is really good because both of these models only have 64 gigabytes of storage. And I'm going to need the micro SD card definitely to store a lot of different apps and things. And again, we've got the gasket around the outside of this. So I've gone through all that boring setup part, and I won't show you any of that, of course, and most people know what that's all about. You go for your typical setup, and here we are. First up, looking at our default apps that are installed. So I've gone with the app drawer mode here with MIUI. This has 12.5 out of the box, and this has 12.0.4, I think it is. I'll take a quick look at that. So you can see there's a lot of bloatware on here. Normally, Xiaomi has up to 20 apps and about 2 gigabytes on their entry-level devices. On the flagships, they do tone down a little bit on it. And very easy to go in and simply uninstall those apps. But I still like to mention that, and I do that with all brands because I don't think they need to cram so much on there. So, fingerprint readers side on those, and I haven't actually set that up yet, so that will be in the full review. I will test that out. Okay, so we'll take a look at the version here on both of these. So yes, we're looking at 2.01, and I've just connected up to wireless on both of them, and there are no firmware updates, so I'm up to date here. So this model, actually, sorry, I said before it had 64. I've got 64 gigabytes on this one and 120. So a little bit confusing there because they're so similar, these phones, in different ways, but then they have a lot of differences with the chipsets on them, being one of them, the Dimensity 700, and then, of course, the Helio G95 with these. All right, so I've noticed already that because it's 60 hertz on this one, it does not feel quite as smooth and fluid, the UI. You're going to get that. And out of the box, it's 60 hertz by default on this. And I've noticed it just, things do feel a lot smoother, definitely here with the Note 5G, 10 5G. And of course, you can see all the bloatware there. So taking a quick look at the screens here, I'll go into my typical depth once I get these, and I'll show you just what you can expect with these screens. So when you look at this one, the colors don't shift out that much. It's AMOLED, uniform color, and the brightness is around 450 nits with this model. Sorry, 400 nits. And the IPS one, this brightness will actually be a little better, about 450. But IPS, so when you do move it, you can see the colors, it shifts out a little bit more when taking a look at them side by side. Definitely, I would go for the AMOLED screen. It does, to me, look quite a bit better. And you get a little tiny bit of the dimmer pixels here around where the cutout is for the front-facing camera that you're going to have with any IPS panel. And just around the edges, especially with the whites, it's a little noticeable here, but that's me nitpicking. Of course, for the price this phone sells for, I don't think too many people are going to be concerned about the IPS. The great thing is, of course, that it does have that 90 hertz, which I'll put it on now, dark mode there, and you can configure the color scheme, typical kind of setup that you get with all the Xiaomi phones, which I really do like this. So you can adjust this, your color saturation, your white balance right there, and just tweak that to your own personal preference. So here we are in the camera app on both of them. So there is going to be a difference in the camera quality here. Obviously, the 48 megapixel and then the 64, there will be some difference there. The resolution advantage, more pixel, the pixel binning and everything. But I wanted to point out that with the video modes on both of these, the 10S is a little superior here for what it can actually do. So we get 4K 30 frames per second maximum, and we get 1080p 30 only on the rear here with the Note 10 5G. So that's a bit of a difference there if you shoot a lot of video and you want the 4K, but this 4K does not have any electronic image stabilization. It does at 1080p only, and that's 1080p on both of these models will have electronic image stabilization. And here's just a few samples now that I've shot with the cameras on both of these phones. Very quick camera comparison side by side here with the rear cameras. So what I've set is the Note 10S to 1080p 30, and that way it has the electronic image stabilization. That way it's exactly the same as the Note 10 5G, and we can actually shoot in 60 frames per second on the 10S, but it doesn't have any electronic image stabilization. 4K does not either, so it shakes all over the place. And I'll give you a sample in the full review. This is just an unboxing first impressions video. So the focus seems to be working quite well on both of them, and the stabilization, it looks all right so far. It's not the best out there. It's certainly not going to be flagship level. And the front-facing camera, so 8 megapixels versus 13. Is there a bit of a difference right here? And they both have electronic image stabilization, which is good to see. The crop is rather close. So that's my arm fully extended out, so it's not too bad. But I would rather have this crop. I mean, I would have it with the electronic image stabilization that we get, because it means this footage is at least usable, not shaking all over the place. So how is it handling the changes here with the sun and the exposure shifting out on both of them? Here, what I'm looking at, it looks very, very similar. But let me know in the comments, do you think there is a clear advantage on the more expensive 10S? Or is the footage on the 10 5G, is it still good enough? This is a front-facing selfie, so I look like a bit of a zombie on the 5G model. I prefer the 10S here. And looking at my cat Vera, she was not happy, let me in. I think the shot on the 10S is a little better, more detailed there. And this portrait of my daughter, the 10S, I think, but the colors are a little bit off as well. I don't particularly like them. And indoors, again, I think, well, it's close here. They're both about the same. And the scenery shot, a little bit more detail coming through on the 10S again. And lastly here, the low light performance. Both of them not great, but slightly better on the Note 10S. And let's have a look at the internal storage now and just Antutu after this. You can see there's a big difference. So both of them have UFS 2.2 spec, okay? But we've got the 64 gigabytes here and then 128. And this one has that Dimensity 700 versus the Helio G95 there. And big difference there in those speeds. So what I'll do now is load up Antutu and test that. Just before I do that, I wanted to comment a little on the gestures, that I have noticed that they seem to be triggered a little bit easier on the Note 10S for some reason, but it could just be me, I don't know. It just seems to be the touch works a little fraction bit better there too. So I'll load Antutu at the same exact time here. I'll just find where it is. So there we go, and it loaded up. Looks like it's going to load up faster on the, oh, that was almost about the same. So really equal there. So I'll test them both now at the same time. I'll launch them and we'll see which one starts off first. Really very, very similar here. Okay, that on the G95 was a little quicker. So I'll let this run now and show you the result. And look at the difference here in the results. So about 11,000, 10,000 points. Not a huge difference, but look at the GPUs. Now, I did notice and see this difference when it was running that GPU test Antutu. It looked a lot laggier on the Note 10 5G. This one was showing it was just a frame rate that was well less, half the frame rate of what the 10S here has. So if you're into your games and you're looking at both of these phones, I would definitely get the 10S for the gaming performance, the much more powerful, potent GPU it has. And just a couple other things I wanted to point out. I've noticed that scrolling, you'll see that 90 Hertz clearly does look a little bit better, but it's not that much of a difference, really. It's only when you look at it really hard. And if you're not using a 90 Hertz or 120 Hertz phone, I think the 60 is going to be fine for most people. And I would actually personally go for this one. It's a slightly better screen being the AMOLED. Now we'll have a listen to the speakers, but what I've done before just doing this is I plugged in and listened to a little bit of audio through both of the 3.5mm headphone jacks. They're very similar, but the G95 powered Note 10S does sound a little bit better to my ears. And the loudspeakers, we'll test them out now and I'll give you a sample. And they're very similar, perhaps using this same hardware there with those speakers. But here they are, both of them at 100% volume. All right, so hopefully this video of these two models here cleared up a little bit of the confusion. What are the differences? So it's screen, chipset, charge time, cameras, that's really it. So if you're a gamer out there and you can be gaming a lot, then I would get the XS, definitely. If you want the best cameras, XS. Charge time, XS. You can see where I'm going with this. This is the more expensive model. Yes, it is superior. And the G95 doesn't seem to be too bad of a chipset. So the charge times, the battery life, the thermals, gaming performance, all my typical in-depth, normal review coverage will be coming with both of these. So do stay tuned. Subscribe for the in-depth reviews, of course, if you're interested. And I will see you back in those videos with a bit of a comparison, maybe in those, or they will probably just get an in-depth individual review because I have, well, already compared them now in this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.